everybody. My name is Adam Beauchamp. I'm the Brewmaster here at Creature Comforts Brewing Company, coming to you from our Southern Mill facility here in Athens, Georgia, and I'm joined by Dr. Daniel LePage here.
Hi everyone, Daniel LePage, and I'm our Senior Quality Manager. And 2021, it's a fresh year, and we kind of wanted to talk with you all a little bit about fresh beer and why it's so important to us. Freshness is something that we think about every single day at Creature Comforts. It actually dictates a lot of the decisions that we make because we want all of you to be getting incredibly fresh beer that's incredibly tasty, and it's exactly what we think you should be experiencing. That starts right from the beginning with the raw ingredients. So a lot of beers like Tropicalia have some fantastic hops and fantastic aromas that come from those hops, and those can actually degrade over time. And so one of the things that we actually do right from the beginning is we have all of our hops shipped to us in refrigerated trucks. That's not something that many breweries are doing. We actually have to specifically order those trucks ourselves, send them around the country to pick up all the hops before they bring them back to us. After that, they go into a freezer right on the other side of the wall here where we keep them nice and safe until we're ready to put them into beer. We also keep track of all of the metrics throughout the brewing process. A lot of that comes down to packaging. One of the things that will affect the freshness of a beer is how much oxygen is in the package. And so when we're packaging our beer, we want it to have ideally zero oxygen. We are routinely around just 30 parts per billion oxygen in our beer. We do all that with our canning line, and as we're canning that product, we're also printing dates on the bottom of the cans and also the outsides of the boxes, so everyone knows exact minutes that those beers were canned and packaged, and so you know exactly how old it is and how fresh the beer is. So those are some of the things that we're taking into account just when we're producing it.
Yeah, so we do a lot on our end to make sure that the beer that gets into the can or keg is as good as it possibly can when it goes into our cooler here immediately after it's produced, and then as it goes out to market. That's part of the battle, right? The other part of it is how does beer get treated once it leaves our four walls. There's a lot that has to happen right to deliver that like perfectly fresh experience to you, and there's some things you can do yourself to kind of help yourself out. So just starting with getting it to the wholesaler and then out to retail, it's all cold chain supply. So, cold trucks, cold storage at the wholesaler, and then, getting out to retail, there's a lot of cold storage. You'll see some displays out in the market, but we try to keep those inventory levels very low and enough to where we can go through those in about a week or so. And so, from your standpoint, how do you make sure that you're getting fresh beer? We print the dates on the cartons, on the outside of the boxes, and on the bottoms of the cans. So when it was canned on and when we are saying it's going to be best to enjoy by. That enjoy by date can definitely be influenced by storage conditions. So if you're storing your beer in the trunk of a car on a summer day, it's 90 degrees out, it's not going to last for very long. In fact, it's going to taste pretty bad well before that best by date that we put on the can. Rule of thumb that we use around the brewery is that storing a beer cold for 300 days is about the same as storing a beer warm or around room temperature for 30 days, about the same as 3 days at around 90 degrees or in the trunk of your car. So you can see the big shift in those numbers as the temperature goes up gradually. So we recommend, as a consumer, you should check the date, make sure it's within that best by, get it home quickly, put it in your refrigerator, and drink it quickly as well. It's really, there's this, in a warm store, it just happens so quickly that some of those hoppy flavors degrade, and you start to get more malty flavor in Tropicalia. Some people actually prefer it that way. Not most of us, though. We spend a lot on these beautiful hops that to put a lot of energy into getting here in perfect shape. So we want you to be able to experience those in the way that we intended, with just a really fresh, herbal, fruity, beautiful hop bouquet. One thing that we're doing as well in market that I want to touch on is checking dates really obsessively. All of our in-market quality sales team is checking the dates, every single date of product that is in an account every single time they visit an account, and they are also logging that into what we call a freshness tracker, little application that they have on their phones. We use that data to then inform lots of decisions. It's the #1 KPI that we have as a company, is beer freshness. So we use that to give an indication of how strong the demand is for our product. For example, if we're seeing freshness tick up and our shipments are the same, then our demand in that particular location is probably going down. The other thing that really tells us is if the size of the deliveries are being managed appropriately. So if we accidentally dropped months worth of product, then that's something that we can potentially manage and fix around the next go round. So freshness is a really, really super critical thing. I mean, it's the best indicator of how good of an experience you as the consumer might have. We got a question coming in. Can beer be cold, then warm, then cold again, still okay? Yeah, really it's all about kind of geeky, but thermal loading, right? Like how much heat is that beer absorbed over time? Cycling it doesn't have a really major impact, although just getting it warm over and over again is going to add up that thermal loading. If it's warm, get it cold and keep it cold. That's the best thing to do. So yeah, a couple things that we do with the in market. I just really the take homes are check your dates, keep it cold, never let it get hot, and manage how long you let it sit warm. Really, just get it cold as soon as you can. So those are sort of the keys to holding up your end of the quality arrangement that we have. So Daniel, do you want to talk a little further about some of our internal stuff that we do?
Yeah, so some of the things that we use to kind of keep track of the freshness of Tropicalia, we have built our own internal aging scale specifically for Trop. It's a 10-point scale, and we know exactly how long we can store beer at room temperature and where it'll fall on that scale. And then we have our official sensory panel. Our sensory panel is made up right now of 24 Creature employees who have been put through intensive sensory training. It's a 10-course program where they are taught how to evaluate beer, what's true to brand for our beers, how to identify defects, and they are also taught on this in-house aging scale. And so we can use our panel, we can put any kind of Tropicalia we want in front of them, we can pull it from market, from the grocery store, wherever consumers might buy it, and check how it's actually aging in the market. And they will rank it on that 10-point scale, and they do so pretty reliably. This is also the panel that we use to check every single batch of Tropicalia, so they're even tasting every single batch of beer before it goes into package and even after package to make sure that it's incredibly fresh, it's exactly the type of Tropicalia that we want to send out into the market, and then it's on the retailers and on everyone else to try to keep it that way, keep it cold, keep it fresh, and then you'll get the exact same Trop that our sensory panel is drinking right out of the tank.
Yeah, that's kind of a novel thing that we're super proud of, is being able to really gauge how oxidized the beer is and setting limits on that from a sensory perspective. Another thing I wanted to mention that I kind of forgot at the end of mine, another thing that we're really watching that freshness data and taking feedback from, it allows us to modulate our production. So if our freshness numbers are going long, so they're getting older in market, we don't want to keep just producing beer to meet a plan or to meet orders and expectations. We have to run through that inventory in a first in, first out kind of manner. And so watching freshness gives us the earliest indication on whether or not we're overproducing a brand like Tropicalia. So we often will scale back our volumes in order to meet that level of freshness that we're interested in keeping for the consumer. And I was also going to mention, when all of COVID sort of hit right at the initial bit, we had a tremendous amount of draft beer in the market at the time. And once the on-premise, which is bars and restaurants, is what we call it, once that started reopening, a lot of them still had draft beer, that was within date code, but we felt like would age out in an unreasonable amount of time. It had an irregular amount of age on it to be at the current volume that it was sitting at because of the lack of a month's worth of sales happening. So we decided to buy all that beer back and took a tremendous financial hit during that. Yeah, we actually got our panel to review it and used some of our metrics to determine that it wasn't going to be good, for the long run. Bought it all back, even though it was within date code, and it would have aged out, we believe. And so, ended up shipping it down to the folks that do beer destruction for us, and they made ethanol, which might have gone hand sanitizer. But it's just a part of that commitment. We really, really don't like old beer unless it's meant to be aged. It's funny, we're sitting here in a beer aging room, but different beers age differently, and really want to highlight the fact that Tropicalia should not be aged and stored cold. So.
Yeah, I have family members and folks ask me, is it's okay to keep this beer, they've got a really nice beer and it's special, they want to save it for a special occasion, they might put it down in their basement or something and keep it for a while. And some beers that works great with, we're standing right in front of some bourbon barrel aged stouts right now. Some of these have been in the barrels for over a year. But really hoppy beers and things like Tropicalia, it's best fresh. And it is nice to have those opportunities where it doesn't get better with time. You have to enjoy it now. You have to enjoy the moment. And so some people ask, is there a difference in quality between draft cans, crowlers, that kind of thing? In general, there can be differences, yeah. Crowlers are probably the worst of the three. They're being packaged by hand. When we're putting beer into a can like this, we have a very, very high-tech, expensive canning line that is meant to do that very well. It's difficult to do that by hand, and so that's going to be probably your lowest quality. Cans, especially cans right now, are very good. Cans used to get a bad rap, but the modern-day canning lines are quite good, and so getting beer in can is perfect. It's great. And draft can even be better. Sometimes if you're buying a can, if it's been stored warm or something like that, it might have degraded a little bit. We keep a close eye on that to make sure it doesn't degrade too much. But hopefully a keg has been stored cold the entire time. And if so, and you're going to be able to get a really nice fresh beer. But we work really hard to make sure that the difference between the draft and the cans is absolutely minimal, and that everyone's getting really fresh stuff.
Just want to throw it out there. If you've got questions about fresh beer, about Tropicalia, about how we're keeping it fresh, and how you can as well, throw them out there for us. Had a question about mini kegs. Not currently something that we offer, although those are really cool. Thank you all for joining us here. We're just reintroduce ourselves real quick. Adam with Creature Comforts, and
Daniel LePage. I'm your senior quality manager.
And we're talking freshness, Tropicalia, in particular. Really trying to drive home the point today that you should be drinking IPA and Tropicalia fresh, and that you should keep it cold, and you should check the dates. Those are all going to be things that lead to your sort of peak, like Nirvana beer experience with Tropicalia. So, we've highlighted a bunch of cool different stuff that we do, that you can do to keep the beer fresh, but it's something that's super important to us. So, any questions, we'll take them, y'all. We're here for you late on a Monday evening.
Sometimes we have people ask if they can buy kegs directly from the brewery because they want that, direct experience getting the freshest beer that they can. And unfortunately, thanks to Georgia law, it's actually illegal for us to sell that quantity of beer to consumers. Hopefully that'll change sometime in the future, but and when it does, we'll be happy to sell kegs, but currently we can't do that, unfortunately.
Which CC beer is the healthiest is a question that I'm reading. While we aren't able to make any health claims about beer because it does contain alcohol, I could probably tell you that is it Athena or CCL going to be our lowest calorie offering?
Athena.
Athena is going to have the lowest calories, and subsequently levels of carbohydrates. And so, it's a nice light beer that you can enjoy in moderation. So that's probably the best answer to that question. Let's see, we got another one coming in. Okay, Tropicalia hops. Yeah, we've got a question if any of the hops have changed in Tropicalia due to volume, or our contracts. No, actually, we have been really quite fortunate and had some amazing hop suppliers stand by us through all these years, and various degrees of hop shortages. But we've not had to change the hop bill of Tropicalia whatsoever. We've been able to get some really amazing hops. We do go to Yakima every year. We actually went to Australia last year as well. Tropicalia has Galaxy hops in it, which come from Australia. What we do change is, the lot changes year to year. So it's a different crop of hops. We have to evaluate those and make sure that they're consistent. But no, we've never had to make that hard call to actually change the recipe due to hop availability issues. So I feel very lucky.
Yeah, we're lucky and we're able to choose the lots of hops specifically that we want for Tropicalia and all of our other beers. And in fact, I think the last official company trip last year was Adam and one of our co-founders, David, going down to Australia to choose those Galaxy hops. But that hasn't stopped because of COVID. Instead of going out to Washington and going out to Oregon to select those hops from the 2020 crop year, all of our suppliers sent the lots to us, and so over several days, actually, we had a trained group of people within the brewery going through every single one of those lots and making our lot selections for 2021. And those are some of the hops that we're brewing with currently.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's a good trip. We do currently do Tropicalia in 16 ounces and in 12 packs. So 12 packs just came out. If you haven't seen them, they're all over Georgia, which is currently the only state that Creature Comforts is available in. But 12 packs of Tropicalia, brand new, and exciting for us. First time we've been able to offer in a multi-pack. You can also find the 16-ounce 4-packs all throughout our distribution footprint, and as well as the 12-ounce 6-packs, which is the classic pack. So yeah, lots of different options. We also do draft, of course. Some of those establishments hopefully opening back up real soon. Can't wait to have a beer at a bar. It's been a little bit. Got another question coming in. Stouts and porters, are those the original style? Sorry. Oh, do stouts and porters keep their original taste over time? It's a great question. Yeah, so dark malt actually has antioxidant in it, and so they do tend to stay a little bit truer to their original profile a little bit longer. The oxidative flavors that develop in stouts and porters are, I would argue, probably a little more complementary to their original flavor profile, whereas IPA tastes like a garden in full bloom with citrus and tropical notes, herbal, all these really beautiful berry and melon notes. Porters and stouts, they've got these roasty, chocolate, nutty notes, graham cracker, and things like that. And when they start to oxidize, you get like cherry notes, for example, or prune, raisin, which sort of, even when you say it out loud, like that sort of fits together a little bit better than say like prune or cardboard, for example, an IPA, along with those beautiful like tropical notes. So it's sort of happenstance, but those flavors that are in stouts and porters tend to just mesh a little bit better with oxidation, and they also are less prone to oxidation. So, anything to add to that? That's a good question.
Yeah, there are three general things that are going to affect how a beer ages: time, temperature, and the amount of oxygen that's in the package. We work very, very hard to get the lowest amount of oxygen physically possible in a package, but then it comes down to time and temperature. But all those reactions are going to be changing the beer, but a lot of them target hop compounds. And so beers that are especially hoppy are going to be really, really susceptible. So something that has less hops, and of course, especially something that's maltier, and so if it's those reactions are making it a little bit more maltier, it just complements it, then it'll be a little bit different. We have a question if there are any process considerations in the brew house to limit oxidation and other shelf stability effects. And yeah, there are. So we have a very nice brew house here at Southern Mill. It is a Kronsteinecker system from Germany, and we will actually, we've got all of our processes timed out to where we're heating the beer as little as possible, we're keeping it hot as little as possible, we're moving it quickly, and so it's not exposed to oxygen, it's not exposed to the air any more than it needs to be. And then we also have to actually add oxygen into the beer at the end of it to help the yeast in fermentation, but we're trying to add the smallest quantity possible that the yeast will be happy and that it's not going to damage the beer. So we've measured a lot of these things, and we tried to dial them in to where we're not doing anything that's a little gratuitous or will age the beer.
It's great. Yeah, there's a lot to be done in the brew house. It does get overlooked because, within the brewing industry, like there's a very deadly focus on how much oxygen is in your packaged product. So how much is in the can, how much is in the keg. Once you get that under control and you get it to a very bare minimum, there are lots of other things that you can do to help a beer age a little more gracefully. And the brew house is one of the most critical. So like not loading it with too much heat, not having too much splashing, sort of transferring liquids very slowly and carefully, and only aerating, a bare minimum is great. So yeah, great questions. Sunlight exposure is a little different than the oxidative reactions that you would primarily think about when it comes to freshness, but the word stability is a little more expansive. So the stability of a beer is its ability to stay as it was when it was fresh. So sunlight exposure is certainly a stability issue. When beers are exposed to sunlight, they react in a really specific and strange way to make the smell of skunk stink. So it requires a photon in the presence of riboflavin striking, I guess, an isoalpha acid, is that right? Or yeah. So it's it changes a hop molecule to the exact smell of a skunk. So when people say beer is skunked, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot within beer, but what it really means is light damage. And you can actually do this with a hoppy beer. You can sit it out in the sun for 10 minutes in direct sunlight. If you smell it before, you smell it after. If you know what a skunk smells like, it will smell like that, at least faintly, after only about 10 minutes. So, cans are great. Cans don't allow that to happen at all. Brown bottles are okay, not quite as good. Some like getting in there. Green glass, not so good. Clear glass, very bad. Some products are light damage stabilized, so they can't be light damaged the way that they're brewed, but most beers not. So long-winded answer, a lot of fun science in there, but yeah.
Someone asked how many times is Trop QC'd. So I actually added this up the other day, and if you look how many quality checks we do on a general batch of Trop, from the brew house and our raw ingredients all the way into package and things that we're checking afterwards, there are at least 120 different checks that we're doing on a single batch of Tropicalia to make sure that it's the best and it's the freshest coming to all you.
All right, food pairings. We're getting some excellent questions, so very much appreciate everyone's attention and engagement. I think that IPA is a fantastic drink, and Tropicalia in particular, to pair with food. It's got an amazing range, so it's actually hard for me to think of like the very best pairing. But IPA can stand up to just about any food because of its heartiness, because of its bitterness, because of its carbonation. It can scrub the palate clean. Bitterness can cut through fat. Maltiness can link up with like caramelized flavors in food, and some of the fruity stuff can also link up and complement a lot of dishes. I'm working on an article currently for a food pairing with Tropicalia, and it's a Thai soup called khao soi. So it's like a sort of curry broth with egg noodles and like crispy, crunchy noodles on top. It's usually cooked with chicken, but a lot of folks cook it with beef. I'm doing the beef version. It's all coming together right now, so you're getting a sneak peek on this. But I solicited a recipe from like a Michelin star Thai chef, so I'm pretty excited about it. But I got the chance to drink some Tropicalia with khao soi on a trip to Thailand, and it was one of those like, oh my god moments. Like, it's just such a nice complement to like spice and richness and some like really aromatic kind of qualities from the broth. So yeah, there you go, Thai soup. Any other questions before we wrap here, y'all? We're getting close to the end, I'd say, but happy to do one or two more. There have been some really good ones, so much appreciated. Makes these things fun. So maybe not.
Find some really fresh trop. Apparently, I have to get some Thai soup going too.
Yeah, dude. I'm writing this recipe with this chef because his recipe came in with a lot of odd ingredients that are not available here. So we've got this back and forth going now, and come up with something that's like publishable and that people can cook at home. But yeah, khao soi is like, it's not a soup that is served in America often. It's like it's a very northern Thai thing, which is also kind of hard to find in general in the U.S. But oh my gosh, it's a special soup. Let's see. Oh, brewing abstract again. Nice. I'll never say never. You know, abstract. For those of y'all listening, abstract was a what is it? Cascadian Dark Ale, the appropriate term these days. A black IPA, brewed years and years ago. So glad to hear we got a fan out there. Unless that's Brandon, our head brewer, just heckling me up here. You know what? We might get to it again. I really did enjoy that beer. So thanks for asking. Stay tuned. Coming to Augusta. We are available in Augusta, in fact. Bars, restaurants, groceries. Give us a look. You know, most of the major grocery stores are pretty reliable to be able to find a good range of our products. But you know, independent retailers, all kinds of bars and restaurants. So, name of the soup is khao soi. K-A-O-H, soy, S-O-I. Yep, khao soi. Seltzer, will Creature ever do a seltzer? We shall see. I enjoy seltzer, unashamed to say that. So I don't think it's out of the question. So. Oh, we got a flurry of questions here at the end. What kind of bourbon barrels are we sitting next to? Daniel, you want to go?
Yeah, most of our bourbon barrels here are from Willet. We have a couple Willet Rye, a couple just straight Willet bourbon. What I'm sitting in front of right now is a Willet Rye, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, some of these. Here we have some Templeton Ryes and things like that, which is a lot of fun. A couple Buffalo Trace barrels, a little bit higher. We started to kind of vary our barrel stock a lot more, which is a lot of fun. You think about it as kind of a box of crayons, and having more variety of barrels just gives us a whole bunch of different colors in our crayon box that then we can play with when we're making our blends like Life in Flux or Concurrence or things like that. It just gives us a whole lot of options.
Kind of an ironic backdrop to be sitting in front of for real. We're having a fresh beer discussion. But yeah, I think it does a little bit to drive the point home that like some beers are fine for aging, but you know, hoppy beer generally just don't do it. I think a lot of people have been catching on to that point over the years, and it takes folks like us just, you know, delivering the message. But you know, in the early days of Creature Comforts, I came across people that were doing a vertical aging of every batch of Tropicalia that we ever came up with. They had like batch 1 through 20 sitting on a warm shelf, just ready to try them all side by side. And I was like, that's not what we want to do. That's not at all the point. So, beers like this, we like to think that we age them pretty well to the point where they're ready to be drank. And so even some of our barrel projects, you worry a little bit less about them, really turning a corner and not being okay. But drinking within a year or two, I would say we don't want to go into the deep aging category because at that point, we have no idea what's going to happen. So it's a little bit in the experimental realm in that phase. So, y'all want to wrap up here, or you feeling good? Cool. Well, thank you all so much for being engaged, for listening to us talk about freshness. Like, most important thing really for us as a brewery, we want to get this stuff to you as fresh as we feasibly can. We do a lot of work related to that. We run on super razor thin, margins and inventories, which makes us, have precarious situations and times, like risk out of stocks, but just want it so fresh. So we hope that you appreciate it too. Thanks again for tuning in, Daniel.
Cheers.
All right.